Kenya Kwanza administration flat-footed, because according to them, we're in a hole. What do you first do? You stop digging, you know? But the same Kenyans are mentioning that the taxation is high, the cost of living is not really being looked at, despite the president saying the cost of unga has gone down, 2 kg packet of maize flour now as low as 145, depending on your preferred brand, gorogoro of maize as well going down. It's a bigger issue, not just the maize issue, but equally the taxation, as he's mentioned. Has Kenya Kwanza done enough?
By the way, just for the record, because I personally have also asked this question before. Why are we adding taxes? And let me tell you something. I was sat down and told, show me one that we have, us as a government, Kenya Kwanza has come in and we have a new tax. There isn't. You see, the issue is, there is a very strong narrative that has been created about Zakayo, the tax collector. And he has come with a list of new taxes and what. And the truth of the matter is that all the taxes that you see, including the taxes in fuel, were existing. These taxes have been collected even as far back as Mwai Kibaki. So it is not an issue of Kenya Kwanza adding taxes. It's an issue of Kenya Kwanza saying, we are going to be so strict that we are not going to spend more than we can actually pay for. So where do you start? You start with your income. Jesse, you know, even now with the times being tough, you look at your income and you ask yourself, do I really need to stay in this house? Okay. Yeah. No, I don't need to stay in this house because the cost of living has gone high, so I need to downgrade. While I downgrade, I also need to maybe possibly take a side job, right? And it's you managing your affairs and your economy of your household, of your personal finances. That is you making decisions that you will tell yourself, in the next 3 years, if I take these decisions, then number one, I'll not be bankrupt. Number two, my kids will stay in school. Number three, I might be able to keep the cars and the assets that I have. Those are decisions that we take personally. Now, if we are able to take those decisions as individuals, when now we have a president who has decided that we can no longer keep going down that hole that we were being taken. And he's doing the same thing for the country. He's saying, listen, guys, number one, everybody must pay taxes. Those people who are getting tax exemptions, there are so many instances of tax exemptions that were not even warranted. Of mergers, including the NCBA banking merger thing that was such a big tax evasion scandal. So the president is saying, these people who are used to getting the free pass, no more free passes for these people, pay your taxes. Number two, while we are paying those taxes, we must understand that these are our expenses and this is the money that we have. And above and beyond that, we also took debts, which were not taken during his tenure as a president. They were taking in the past, but we have that responsibility because it is not William Ruto who's taking, so it is the country.
So, Gloria, and I have to ask this. It is a balancing
act of doing things differently so that we can actually achieve a different outcome.
So are we really doing things differently? Because even as the president said, time has come for us to stop living beyond our means. But that statement might be a bitter pill for Kenyans to swallow
for many people.
Listen to what the Controller of Budget said recently, you know, that we might be budgeting, over budgeting in terms of salaries, that Kenyans might actually be budgeting corruption.
One thing I can tell you is, and this one I'm not afraid to say, there are people who are rooted within the government system who are still stuck in the Uhuru Kenyatta times. So for instance, he talked about we are making sure we collect the taxes, but people are still traveling. That has been a thorn in this government. I'm telling you that the president literally had to call people and say, can you stop with this nonsense? We even had the Felix Koske
head of public service,
put out a memo and say, guys, austerity measures must be practiced. You know why? Because when you take over government, there are some positions you can change. But then there are people who are deep-rooted down there. So you might be the PS, you might be the CS, but down there, the directors, the who sit there and they will tell you this is how we run the affairs. And that is what we've been trying to deal with. And I can tell you for a fact is that slowly you can see the changes that are being implemented. Slowly people will say, oh, these people who are being removed in these positions, it's just a political witch hunt. Those are because they were people of Kenyatta. No, it's because they are people who they are taking us down that hole which we don't want to go. And the president has spoken to these people and told them, listen, Get over that Uhuru Kenyatta hangover. It is William Ruto in office. And we need to stop doing ABCD. And for 6-8 months, some of those people are so rigid that the only thing you can do is say, pack your bags, go, because we need to stop what is happening. And that's what Kenyans need to understand, is that we are in control of these systems. But for us to make it as efficient, you've seen what KEMSA is doing. There has to be people who have to be picked out and told, I'm sorry, but you don't understand the vision, you don't understand where this government is trying to take this country, step aside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you cut you short a little bit earlier on?
No, it's fine, thank you. So, as I was telling you, we may say that there's no new taxation, but that's not what's happening. You see now the circulars that have been withdrawn very quickly. I was telling people the other day, when you see someone sometimes looking for a passport very urgently, and even going to the point of bribing because the CS himself called Nyayo House a crime scene, this person is probably going for a kidney transplant in India. There are people who are not taking passports as a luxury to go and travel in Seychelles. Many of those people want to go and look for a job in Saudi. Some want to go to Qatar. Some are going for cancer treatment, and so on and so forth. A passport is a basic document. It's like your ID. In fact, if it were possible, it should be free. I'm not saying we shall make it free. But if it were possible, it's such an important and critical document that a Kenyan must have by birth and by right because they are Kenyan. When it goes to the tune of what they were proposing, 7,500, now it even kills the dream of someone who was actually doing a harambe to go for medical treatment or for school or to look for a job in Qatar and wherever else.
So you're saying it's in bad taste?
So that is in bad taste. Now, let me tell you, 900,000 candidates are sitting Form 4 right now. So 900,000 times, if the ID is going to become 1,000, this government is going to raise another 900 million. From people, you know, when you leave high school, you have nothing. I didn't get back to your mia moja. I mean, you leave high school, how much do you have? Basically, it's the same parent going back to their pocket now to look for money. Technically, what we are saying, we shall have another number of people who are not able to get IDs and so on and so forth. I think the Kenya Kwanza administration needs to start becoming sensitive to Kenyans and to know that for some of these documents that people are looking for, to even go to those government offices, to start looking, unafika Nyayo House unaambiwa wapi ID. The other day I was in Harambe House. I'd gone to that annex. By the way, why was I going to Harambe House under this administration? Anyway, I went because I'm a Kenyan and I need citizens from. And I got there and I also leave your ID here. So I'm thinking the young people now who will not have an ID will not go to Harambe House because the ID is 1,000 bob and not everybody has 1,000 bob. Wanalia 200 ya unga niyo. So this administration needs to start thinking of how insensitive they are when they become overly ambitious with taxation. And now you've seen people avoiding Lipa na M-Pesa. They are saying, oh, sijui withdraw, sijui what. Kenyans are very clever. They find a way to hide around things and to survive. I think what we need to start doing is to ask ourselves as a nation, before we go into taxing more, where are we wasting money? I give the example of this biro without getting tired. You would not buy it for more than 30 shillings. The government, most of the times through procurement, is buying it for 200, 300 shillings. Okay. The bulk of what we collect, we waste. Look at how many vehicles are lying in government offices, kwa yards, kwa XGK, zilipata vumbi zinakaa hivi, no nambo iliharibu starter, iliharibu alternator. Why don't we create an auction and fast sell all that stuff and get some money to run some of this? So I think we are wasting a lot of money before, we are wasting a lot of money fast. Let's first deal with what we are wasting.
Have they done enough to curb government wastage?
If I can jump in there, and I like the idea he gave because he also gave it in, I think, 2020 when me and him were on a set on another TV station.
Before you were senator.
Yeah, before I was senator, before William Ruto was president. He's talking about the previous procurement corruption scandals that were marred by the Uhuru Kenyatta presidency. And I was going to ask him, in this government, show me a procurement that has actually, showcased that one pen is being procured at 230.
Now they are being auctioned. They are not being paid.
So these are the things, I am glad he has highlighted them because those are the things that we found and that we are trying to correct. But then I want to ask you a question. You and I, Jesse, we wear glasses. And I assume you've worn glasses for more than 10 years because I've worn glasses for more than 10 years.
Give or take.
Your frames 10 years ago, did they cost the same? as they do now. Forget taxes, just now the actual frame. Forget the VAT and everything. They were cheaper. I mean, at one point, we would get nice frames at 850, 1,200, 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Now, because you are a person who uses this tool, you know that the prices have gone up, and it's not about Kenya. So, you know, on the issue of passports, and which he has highlighted, I understand the cry that Kenyans, and I actually think that there has to be a way to bring down that cost. But still, it will not come down to the costs that we were paying 10 years ago. Because it's very simple. 10 years ago, things were cheap everywhere in the world. But we cannot just sit in our corner and say they're cheap, because whatever price that we keep from 10 years ago, then government has to subsidize. If government has to subsidize, then you know what that means? It comes from your taxes. So it's a whole cycle of handling your economy. If the government has to say, we don't care whether the cost of paper has gone high or low, but we want to maintain that passports are this amount of money from 15 or 20 years ago, then they have, because printing at this point is not the same cost as printing at the time when we used to get it. So then government has to subsidize. And one thing you have heard Kenya Kwanza government say is that we are not going to subsidize output. We want to subsidize issues such as fertilizers, inputs, so that we can be more productive. So that from our produce, we can be able to export and now deal with the issue of earning money to now stabilize the economy, in the sense that we are earning money from our agricultural produce, we are earning money, we have food security, we have the cost of food, and all those things are coming down. You've seen with the maize, with the flour prices. And you know, before people were saying, oh, you guys, you're always lying, this and that. Today, I've gone for shopping for my house. I have bought flour at 149 shillings. So I don't know, when people say it's not happening, it's happening. We can already feel the effects of subsidizing the inputs as opposed to subsidizing the output, which is what the Uhuru Kenyatta presidency was doing.
Okay,
yeah.
Kinuthia, briefly.
Just there's something Gloria is not telling you. She's lived abroad for many years. And she can tell you the biggest note in the UK is the £50. And that hasn't changed for very many years. But sisi tulitoka from when Kenyatta left, when the biggest note was the 200 bob, then we got the 500, which we called the Jirongo. We have 1,000. I'll not be surprised by the time Kenya Kwanza is done, we probably might have a 5,000 shillings note. What am I trying to say? Look at the salaries that teachers used to earn in the UK in the 1990 and what they are earning now in the UK. Doesn't change much. And that's why they have never found the reason to print a note anything bigger than the £50. We mismanage our economy so... She's lived abroad, she knows. We've mismanaged our economy so badly. And let me tell you... Let me tell you, when our dollar, when our shilling is exchanging so horribly against the dollar, now it's heading towards 151, 152, and it's going south more and more. I think, as a recommendation moving forward, Africa just needs to disband her currencies, because that's where we lose. Because when she gave the example of the glasses, I could tell there's a lot to do with the dollar there. The bulk of this stuff is imported. We are not making our own. And for as long as the shilling is sliding against the dollar, we continue losing. So we need to know that as Africans, there's something we are not doing right. The bulk of those currencies have not... Zimbabwe got to a point where they printed, I think, a 10,000, 20,000 shillings note. And we could go there if we continue mismanaging ourselves. We have to get to the point where we start controlling everything the way it's supposed to be. And I can tell you, it will get to a point, somebody who used to earn 10,000 will probably just earn 11,000 because things are almost remaining constant.
I'm glad that you have highlighted about me living abroad, because Jesse, Kenyans only want to pick when they are telling a story. It is like when you're telling a story, then you pick a verse of the Bible that supports just that your story. In the interest of having lived, yes, I've lived abroad for long, in different countries, in Denmark, Sweden, the Netherlands, I've lived out there. I can tell you, if we're going to now say living abroad, in that same spirit, in Denmark, where I lived for many years, my salary, 47% of it is taxes. 47.
But you have an assurance of what?
Listen, and that's where we are trying to... No, that's where we are trying to go. 47, that is the reason why, number one, healthcare is... Because they have funds, because you get a salary of whatever amount, 47% is taxes. Yeah? How much do we tax in Kenya? When you try to tax, when the Kenya Kwanza government brought in the idea of affordable housing, so that we can deal with the issue of people not living in dignified households, the first thing we're told is, Zakayo is coming for our salary. Now you want to mention living abroad and how their currency is strong and how life is good, but you don't want the difficult decision of, in that same spirit, abroad for you to get those services. 47% in Denmark of my salary gone, just like that, so that I can get healthcare, so that I can get housing, so that I can get things like good transport system. When it's raining like this, I am assured of a bus stop that is going to cover me. But you know, Kenyans want those things, but they don't want to understand that those things cannot come from air. They must come from our taxes.
Maybe
and
Gloria,
so
let
for
me
the
just put this
affordable
forth.
housing, for instance,
Maybe they're questioning because they are not assured of.
No, it's a change management. It's a transition. Anything new that you introduce anywhere must face resistance.
Okay.
And we are in that period where if the president gets derailed kidogo, and he just looks the other way, he will lose the plot, because it's a change management transition issue. And at one point, it's the same way people used to say, Kibaki is so quiet, he doesn't talk, this guy is not a president, blah, 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 blah. The moment the expressway came and all the roads, people were, oh, Kibaki is the best president. Right, in fact, for us, and I know personally, that it will take another 8 years for people to sit back and they'll be saying, you know, this guy, William Ruto, knew what he was doing. Because he's not thinking of the short-term effects. The issue that Uhuru Kenyatta was saying, subsidize maize and then see if the price will go down for the next 2 months, and then after that, there's no cure. He's thinking of a long-term plan. That is why I said, if we are going to keep quoting issues abroad, oh, the US, they are like this, the Europe are like, also, let us remember how much of